Roleplaying Public Radio. This is RPPR episode 138, Murphy's Campaign Concepts. And with me is Caleb. How you doing, Caleb?
I'm doing good. How are you, Ross?
I'm doing quite well. I'm looking forward to PAX South. We not only I will be going this year, but Tom and Aaron will be going down to PAX South.
Oh, I didn't make fun of your announcer voice. It's like the thing.
Yeah.
Can we get a clip? Can we get a clip of that? Of Tom making fun of the announcer voice?
Yeah, I'm too lazy to edit that in. Besides, that's his thing. You don't want to step on his feet.
I didn't know. I thought it was essential for the branding.
Well, the listeners...
If I work at Walmart, I have to wear a blue vest.
Yeah.
If I'm at RPPR, I got to make fun of an announcer voice.
Yeah, that's true. Well, listeners, yeah, I mean, you can comment how much you missed that little shtick that we've been doing for a while.
Approaching a decade.
Yeah, it is approaching a decade. Jesus. We want to thank everyone who's been supporting us this entire time. So, in this episode, we're going to be talking about more Murphy's rules. These are unintended effects of various game rules and how they can change the game. I'll get a little more into what a Murphy's rule is, and then we'll be talking about what we should do with them, and if you can come up with entirely new campaign settings from Murphy's rules. And but before we get into that, we will be at PAX South. Some of us will be at PAX South. We don't have any official meetups or anything like that. We're just going to be attending to go to various panels, try out new games, and check all the video games so we can do another after hours special. But I will post if we go anywhere meeting. If you're going to PAX South too and you want to meet us, post a comment here on the site or tweet at me at Ross Payton, and
you will be officially in the rolls for the least climactic scavenger hunt ever.
Okay.
Find RPPR members at a Texas convention.
When they're trying to tell you where they are, it's not a scavenger hunt.
Like an Xbox achievement for that. I think it's called Really with 3 question marks.
Thanks, Caleb. You do a great job co-hosting there. I'll post on Twitter if we do any. If people do want to meet us, if there is, I'll try and set up something where we go to a restaurant or go to the board games library section, and assuming they have one, and have some kind of meetup or something like that. And I'll bring postcards and buttons and stuff like that. So, mostly we're going to PAX South to check out all the new video games and stuff. Because I remember last year they had that one video game that you had to have blood taken from you in order to advance the game. Do you remember that, Louis Tech?
I do remember reading about that and being very uncertain if it was real or not.
They had a thing there. The guy paid for a booth, and there was a box with a little needle in it, and I didn't touch it. And so I assume it was real. But anyway, let's get into the discussion. So Murphy's Rules, this was originally a comic in the GURPS, the magazine for GURPS. I think it was called Pyramid. And it's basically the idea is the game rules mean one thing, but the way they're written, another thing happens. And the easiest example is in GURPS, where the penalty to fight in total darkness was -10. But the penalty to fight when you're on fire is -2. So if you need some light, set yourself on fire and you're better off. So,
it is a solution.
It is a solution.
Don't you also take damage when you're on fire, though?
Well, that depends. It's GURPS. You could be someone who is resistant or immune to fire with the point expenditure.
Well, if you're resistant or immune to fire, set yourself on fire all the time,
which is
just to fucking revel in it.
That's actually another Murphy's Rules in 3rd Ed D&D, where being on fire only inflicted 1d6 fire damage per round. It was very easy to get fire resistance 5 or 10. So you could if you had fire resistance 10, why not set yourself on fire?
I don't see how this is a problem. If I was resistant to fire, your house would be burning down right now. And as you choked, I'd be like, I know this is probably traumatic for you, but look how fucking cool I am.
I would actually be impressed that you got here. Like, how did you drive? Like, what is that?
It was a walk.
It was a walk.
I didn't need a coat, though, because
Yeah.
it was on fire.
So yeah, we have. I'm going to give a couple examples to Caleb, and we'll kind of dissect them because. What is your policy overall? First off, when you come, have you ever come up against Murphy's rules in a game where like you realize the rules are written in such a way that they're totally opposite of what they really mean to be, and you realize it could come up as an issue in the game?
Well, I know, like, academically they're inevitable because
Yeah.
the role-playing game system is not reality.
Right.
And there's going to be glitches, just like there's glitches in a video game.
Yeah.
And you're basically just glitch playing or demaking your RPG game when you're looking at them. The only time I ever came across Murphy's rules naturally was after I started writing for Eclipse Phase, when I realized the vehicle collision rules for ion saucers meant they were the only weapon you should ever use in the game, because since they for some reason attached like an exponential formula to it based on like speed to do an actual physics problem, you should basically only play someone jacking into flying discs and hurtling them at things at high speeds when they basically turn into kinetic kill weapons that do like 2,000 damage a hit.
But we didn't try and use that in No Evil.
No, and I didn't, and no sane person would unless they are a loathsome, unforgivable power gamer.
Yeah.
Or B, just a person trying to be an asshole and ruin the game for the GM. Which is, again, probably CA. And the only time the only reason I literally came up with that is because I was having to study for a job that chapter like it was a tome, like a fucking accountant. And I was only doing that because I was being paid to do so. And so I think if a Murphy's Rule comes up in a game and not like in a forum as a joke, I mean, your first problem is you have an asshole at the table. And that's probably something you should take care of before you write a sternly worded letter to the editor of, Big RPG or whatever you're trying to, correct. So if they come up and play unintentionally, I guess that could theoretically happen along a long enough timeline. I've never seen it happen.
Yeah.
But if someone brings it up and is like, oh, nay, on page whatever, they did homework so they could be a dick. That's my opinion of the situation. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's been my overall experience. I think I have had situations where it does happen on the borderlines, especially in the D&D type games, because those kind of are meant to be played in that way to a degree, where you're trying to optimize your character, you're trying to make the most powerful character you can with as few resources as possible. And a lot of a lot of these are sort of academic exercises because they basically interpret the rules in a very specific way that the GM always has the authority to no, it doesn't work like that, or add a house rule. So, but again, these I think can be fun if you look at them and try and think. I think one possible example is if you think of an MMO, an MMORPG, where the game developers clearly designed the game to work in a certain way and have certain play experiences, but eventually players, when they interact with these rules, set in stone basically by the computer, by the programming, come up with entirely different experiences. They come up with ways to exploit bosses, or for example, like the World of Warcraft guys who found out that there was a plague boss, and so that could spread to other players.
So you're looking at Murphy's Rules as an element of emergent play, in an attempt to redeem it.
Yeah.
Well, considering the people who are going to find Murphy's Rules, I think you have a hell of a task cut out for you, buddy.
All right. Well, let's look at a few.
I think about this in terms of red markets because it's in there. I don't know what it is. I probably wouldn't have designed it. I probably wouldn't have designed it intentionally, but I'm sure I have Murphy's Rules in red markets. And you know what? The first time somebody at a panel brings it up, and be like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Maybe don't do that and do it differently than I wrote it. And they're like, but what did you mean? It was like, man, in us talking about this, I assure you we've already spent more time on it than when I actually wrote it. So let's just not and say we did. And that should be the answer to this question. But you're gonna make it a thing.
Yeah, no.
You got the I'm gonna make this a thing
No,
look in your eye. So.
Again, let's talk about it. All right, so the first one. A lot of these are going to be from D&D, by the way. Third ed, because it was rough.
Weird.
Yeah.
As if that were the first mistake.
So in third ed D&D, they had crafting rules, like how much money it would take, how long would it take, and how much money in resources it would take to build a thing. And usually that's meant for magical items, but they had it for non-magical things as well. Now, all of these crafting rules were based on the items. They had formulas for it based on the item's original value. So if you had a long sword that was worth 50 gold, it would take you take that 50 and then you would multiply it or divide it. Blah 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 blah. The formula doesn't matter. The problem comes from two particular items in the basic weapon section.
Oh, God.
The club and the quarterstaff, because those have a value of 0 because they're fucking sticks that you can find on the ground.
Yeah.
So if you plug 0 into these formulas, they don't work, because then you have a peasant who, with minimal weaponsmithing skills, can make an infinite amount of clubs in a negligible part, in plank time, essentially. What do you do when you have a post-scarcity club economy? Peasants making planets worth of clubs?
And so,
yeah.
I just want to be clear. Your premise in this episode, it's let's design an entire game, or nay, as you said in the title, an entire campaign around that fact.
Would you, as a challenge, like, what would you do if that was real, if that was accepted in a fantasy?
Peasants were clubomancers?
Clubomancers,
that could make infinite clubs.
Or quarterstaffs, if you want to be fancy,
Well, first thing I would do is have a sense of reason and taste. And realize that is a thing of the math, and that this is absurd, and it's not a video game in which someone forgot to carry the goddamn one, and so I can smith infinite iron daggers and become a matchstick of demon armor. Like, it's not fucking Skyrim.
All right.
So that's what I would do.
Okay.
But if I was Ross Payton, I wouldn't have those things. So... From there, I would determine that nobles get their noble blood precisely by actually being humans. Mm-hmm. And all peasants are actually like some sort of Spriggan plant people that infinitely can grow clubs out of their form. So I would say that peasants are literally not people in this universe, because they are just walking, talking, smelly plants that look like people that can just birth sticks of varying quality
All right.
infinitely from their body. And that's the reason you have to put them down and keep them to work, or else they're just going to drown the land in firewood.
Right.
So, yes.
Okay.
I would also invent cars in this universe, because, steam engines make sense.
Oh, yeah.
If you have an infinite supply of wood.
Yeah.
So it'd be a very steampunk D&D universe.
Oh, wow, yeah.
In which all poor people are actually plants. Next.
All right. The next one is one I think I mentioned to you before, the show, which is basically taking advantage of the fact that in D&D, the animate dead, the animate dead spell. I have other systems as well, but it's mostly D&D.
As if there is a trade.
So you have the animate dead spell. You can create undead, like skeletons, that will obey your orders, and they will do these flawlessly as per the rules, and they can only obey instructions of so much complexity, like attack anyone except someone who is wearing a blue robe who enters this room, or something like that. Very basic. So the idea is, obviously, instead of using them as guardians, use them as bits, as parts, physical components of a computer to build. And the way they calculate it on various forums is like with 300 to 600 skeletons, you could make a calculator that could. If they were all in a grid and they could all look at each other.
There's actually a scene like this in Three Body Problem.
Yeah.
In the VR game, they get like all the soldiers of the Han Dynasty out in a giant field with black flags and red flags, and they turn individual soldiers into bits.
Yeah.
So you want to do this in a game because I'm struggling with the premise. You think this will be fun?
I think it would. This is amazing. I think like one.
So we're designing a game based off a cellular computer.
Yeah. Well, the idea, it's a physical place. Like, you have to build the computer is, the dungeon is the computer.
Oh, I know. Yeah, okay. I get it.
All right. So, I mean, there's also interesting side problems. For one thing, like, how do you replicate Moore's Law? In Scala computing, you know, when you have international bone machines trying to build better and better computers, they need to get smaller and smaller skeletons so they can cram more skeletons in a smaller area that can all perceive each other. And so they start with human, they go down to halfling, then they finally settle on pixie skeletons. And so sourcing that is kind of that could be an interesting challenge.
So genocidally murdering the pixie pumpkin.
Well, it has to be sustainable, you know. They have to go into alternate universes.
So farming pixies.
Yeah, resurrection is for pixie skeletons, you know.
Well, okay, I can see this going two ways.
Yeah.
The first way is you throw out D&D.
Yeah.
And you get the Warhammer 40K book out because it sounds grimdark as fuck.
Yeah.
The Pixie Troughs. And then metal starts playing as you go to the Pixie Slaughterhouse to make Pixie Bone computers.
Right.
The other way is you throw it out and you get hill folk out and you basically all play necromancers, but you run it like it's a episode of the IT Crowd.
Yeah, exactly. That actually would be really fun because like, you know, fighting bugs could be literally fighting bugs, like giant.
I went to the skeleton computer and all my friends died. All right, were you wearing a blue robe? What? Yes, sir. Were you wearing a blue robe?
I don't see why you're having a problem with it. This sounds amazing. Like, the skeletons will attack anyone not wearing a blue robe. So,
did you read the user agreement? You can't sue us for that.
There's
the user scroll.
The user scroll.
You signed.
Yeah. And then you can like get input through my, you know, programmed illusion spells to like simulate a monitor.
The skeleton can keep asking me all these deeply personal questions. You agreed in the user scroll.
Yeah.
We got to collect our metadata.
Why? Why can't I die? Yeah, the output keeps coming to that.
Yeah, you got to keep answering their questions.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
The other thing is also at the logical conclusion of this is that they reach the singularity or the scalularity. And what happens when it's a Terminator, but they're actually just skeletons who are really angry that you've been using
a lot of them.
A lot of them. Billions and billions. So I think, I mean, and to be fair, that there have been variants of, there's actually been published module or, like in the D20 glut of like, instead of using skeletons, having golems as computers and that kind of
This
thing.
is basically the plot of Final Fantasy VII. How do we power our society? The souls of the dead. Wait, what? Yeah, everyone who dies goes to the center of the earth, and then we mine them and burn them for energy. You didn't think that was going to cause a problem? No, but I'm like, it's pretty good fuel, so
Yeah.
Yeah, we just burn the souls of the dead in our cars. That's a thing.
It's fine. The next one is actually relatively simple, and it's again D&D. But the in third ed, the idea is whenever you hide, whenever you're fully hidden, it's you and your equipment, and you can hide if you're in full cover, i.e., no one can physically see you because there's something solid between you and them. Now.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so
thanks for telling me that, D&D.
All right. Now
things are not visible when they are not visible.
Now here's the Murphy's rule: is tower shields can be used to provide full cover, which is something part of your equipment. So if you have a tower shield and hide behind it, you and the tower shield are now invisible.
That's fucking easy. Monsters don't have object permanence.
They're like babies.
Yeah, monsters don't have object permanence. It's like a Witcher trick. That's how you figure. And that's fine. Yeah, you just need a rest. You take a dip behind your tower shield. Monster's like, where'd it go? And then he wanders away.
That's actually really clever. I like that. And then it's like, is it even ethical to hunt monsters?
Yeah, no, it's really not. They're dumb as fuck.
So it's like
It's really easy to trick them.
I like that. I like that a lot. Another one. This is something Aaron would like. This is actually in D&D, but for fifth edition D&D, the newest one. a lot of the times in 5th Ed D&D, instead of previous edition was lots of bonuses, that added up from different sources. And they kind of tried to get rid of it, but they didn't get rid of it entirely. So, most of the time now advantage things will give you advantage or disadvantage, except for the Paladin's Aura. Which will give you a flat bonus to vary your saves and, your AC and all this other stuff. The thing is, Paladin auras can stack. It's like, once you get to level 8, it's like a 10-foot around you, and then once you get to like level 12 or something, it's 30 feet around you. And so, if you had a team of 4 Paladins that were all within 10 feet of each other, they would have like a plus 20 to their saving throws when nothing in the game can make them fail their saving throws. So they basically become immune to everything at that point, or they become as resistant to damage as anything can. So you just have this little tiny squad of guys who they have to keep shoulder to shoulder basically to each other. But as long as they do that, nothing can kill them. So
okay, so our campaign is an Inquisition. Churches are literally pillars against attack, full of people who are faithful and through being connected by faith become impervious. Whereas anyone who doubts and isn't paladin enough is literally a chink in the armor and dooming us all to destruction. So it just gets like Spanish Inquisition up in that bitch. Everyone's looking for the people who aren't paladin enough. You basically just run it like church, like actual human church. You're constantly seeking someone who's not as pious as you to make them suffer and remove, and thereby prove your piety. Yeah, I just go tragedy of the commons there, man. Like everyone it turns into a backbiting nightmare.
Wow. I was thinking Power Rangers. So you have holy warriors that have to fight next side by side.
Does it say how close they have to be?
Within 10 feet. Yeah,
so that's a shame.
Yeah. At higher levels, it's 30 feet, so they can spread out a little bit.
Well, that's even more of a shame.
Yeah.
I would allow it if they stacked, literally were in physical contact
so
with each other. So they have to Voltron together. But I can't change the rules because, God forbid, that would be too easy of a fix if you changed a number so it was rational and sane.
You talk about people being on top of each other in there. The grappling rules have some interesting rules.
God damn it. Wait, what's this from? Is it from
D&D?
Oh, all right.
And Pathfinder, where essentially the way the grappling rules and movement rules work is if you get enough halflings and ratlings together in a pile, they can they all grapple each other and then move 5 feet away from each other in the same round. So they're moving it's just a ball of ratlings moving at 50 to 300 miles per hour, depending on how many you can stack up in one corner. So, because they're all grappling and dismounting at the same time.
Okay. You know how Ken and Robin, our podcast patriarchs, have the things they always say, and usually profound advice. Mine might just be don't play D&D. That might be one of my things I always say.
Well, here's one from another game.
Okay.
We have some other game systems. One was actually that we talked about in great detail on Palladium Poisoning bonus episode.
God damn it. Are you really doing this for fucking Palladium?
Just one.
Really?
Just one.
The entire fucking game system.
Actually, no, because the thing about rifts in particular is how do you power... we had a whole...
The quickest way to climb a mountain is to fail descending it. The entire fucking game system's a Murphy's Rule.
Well, out of all those Munchkin character classes, what was the most Munchkin? And after we talked about it, Sean and I, for an hour, we figured it out. It was the Glitter Boy, but what you do is you actually, as soon as you start the game, you sell your Glitter Boy, you get 25 million credits, and then you can hire an army to do what you want. So, that's the Murphys, is to reject the premise of the game and just become a rich guy to tell other people what they do.
Well, oddly enough, I actually support that level of metagaming, because you're not playing Rifts anymore.
True. So
that's the War Games AI move. The only winning move is not to play.
In Shadowrun, in various editions, it turns out the most effective weapon, especially in the latest edition, are actually stun grenades. Because grenades in particular, the way the rules work, they bounce off if they're near a wall or a ceiling, or one of the floors. And the way a stun grenade's description is written, it does will like times 8 or times 10 damage if you throw it into a room, if it can hit the floor or ceiling, because the damage somehow bounces off back and forth in the stun grenade. So one stun grenade will do 8 times normal damage if you throw it in a room. So basically, it's more effective than anti-tank missiles. It's more effective than most powerful sorcery. It's more effective than an assault cannon. You just throw a stun grenade and you win.
And Shadowrun readers, they definitely intended it to be that way. It's not a mistake in editing. It's definitely not an oversight in playtesting. They're trying to show you the secret to the universe. You and Nick Cage get together and go rescue the Constitution from where it's buried underneath FASA headquarters. What the fuck? Who cares? Just be like, oh, wait, that's a mistake. Don't do that. That's it. The problem solved. It's not a fucking secret code. Right. You're not looking at the zeros and ones of the Matrix when you see this shit. It's an editing error. God. Jesus Christ.
Let's see here. Well, going back, sometimes Murphy's rules are not so easy to ignore. So,
all right, anyway, when we go back to Shadowrun, stun grenades are named stun grenades ironically. Like you call fat guys slim or something like that. They just so fuck someone up.
Yeah.
That is like, should we use the, quote, stun grenades, unquote? Yes. That's the answer.
All right. I like that. That actually explains a lot. Sometimes Murphy's rules don't work in the player's favor. In Pathfinder...
Wait, those were 4 players?
Yeah, because you load up on stun grenades, or you load up on...
And then you get to ruin your game.
Yeah, argue with the GM.
Instead of playing this video game, I'll give you a certificate that says you won it. There, you win!
It's called Steam Achievement Manager, and you can use it to unlock all the achievements.
All right, very good.
So... in the Pathfinder Jade Region campaign, they have part of the campaign is traveling across this vast area, and you need a caravan to do it because it's like wilderness. So they included caravan rules, and to make it interesting to player characters, you could.
To be clear, we took a dip into a game that is one of the most broken game systems of all time, Shadowrun, and now we're back to a D&D. Go on.
It's just there's so much about that. There's so many Murphy rules about D&D because there are so many more rules for D&D and Pathfinder because they have published so much. So in the Jade Region campaign, and these are just kind of examples to philosophically talk about it.
This is philosophy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the concept of a Murphy. So in the campaign, you have a caravan, and they have new rules to manage the caravans. And so, you can choose different types of wagons that will have different bonuses. And then you can choose feats instead of feats to improve your character. You can choose feats to improve the caravan. You can also spend gold, and instead of buying better weapons and magic items for yourself, you can spend your gold on improving the caravan. Sounds pretty basic, straightforward. Yeah. The problem is that the numbers for the caravan aren't balanced against the actual encounters. So, the improvement for caravans, assuming you put all your resources in the caravans to min-max the shit out of it, improve linearly on a linear fashion. But the encounters go up sort of geometrically, so that and you won't discover in the first few encounters it's actually pretty
there's some really scintillating forum posts explaining this.
Oh yeah, there are.
Yeah,
I'm summarizing.
Are there charts?
There are charts.
Oh yay, the real fun of games.
Yeah,
charts.
But by the mid-campaign, the fights are so one-sided against caravans, you have to basically roll out of natural 20s or just get the absolute best possible way, outcomes for every single fight in order to survive. Because if the caravan loses a fight, all the NPCs die, you lose all your supplies, you lose all your gold, your characters are kind of fucked, basically. And so, people played this game and this campaign, and then they didn't discover this until midway through the campaign when they got wrecked by the midpoint encounters. And so at this point, it's they realized most people who were in the campaign don't use the caravan rules, just ignore them. But you can obviously extrapolate like what in a world where caravans cannot survive because what happens when trade no longer is possible because a single random monster will destroy any caravan.
Well, I would do Oregon Trails rules and just say that those people are farmers.
Yeah,
and that bankers start off at like level 1 billion caravans.
Yeah.
And they can carry more meat.
Yeah. Well, you can also. The other possibility is that the caravans that can survive these encounters, the ones that are utterly min-maxed and can survive them, are like become the only form of trade for every kingdom.
Yeah.
And then they become the new emperors of the world, essentially.
There was a post on Red Market's group about this group that tested it out and they wanted to know more about the math of the game.
Yeah.
And so I sent them like this probability curve chart, this kind of stuff. And they're like, no, they want more math than that. I'm like,
what more math?
What more? It's the basically like the math of like bounty per thing. And this is like, so they want a mathematical like, and I'm like, well, that's all in the game. They're like, well, they want to plan out their whole thing. It's like, so you want a mathematical model to predict the future of everything that occurs in the game? That's the math you want? Like, I don't have that. No one does. No one has that math. And like, those are the kind of guys, they didn't want a game. They wanted to play the charts. They want a chart game on a forum post. A game where like, ooh, charts.
Well,
hey.
I mean, in D&D, again, like they have like guidelines for like how much.
This is why I don't like the Big Bang Theory, among many other things, is thinking that nerddom stops at like playing D&D. Nay.
Yeah.
It gets so much worse than that.
Yeah.
And so much more broken. God. You talk about Murphy's psychology here.
Yeah.
Like, the Murphy psychology of finding these things, like, and discussing them and, like, bringing them up in a game enjoyable. Because, like, the game's not broken as much as you are, sir. For thinking that, like, ooh, well, the caravan rules, this deserves 4 pages of tippity taps on the forums. And no, something's wrong with you, bro. What didn't get edited right in your personality? And how is this exploit working out for all of it?
Wow, you have very strong opinions.
But oh god, it's just like, well, all my guys died before the big thing, and so I guess we can't play anymore. I'm like, so why'd you kill him? He's like, well, the rule said I had to. I was like, so lie, like, well, you're the GM, just lie, just you're God, like.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, like in that situation, if the GM didn't realize it until the fight had already ended,
okay, that would be bad, I get that, but the overwhelming majority of these things is like, just don't do that, like,
right. Well, I mean,
when somebody's like, oh, if we're all paladins and we stack up, we're literally invincible, right? Just be like, no, don't get out the book. Don't do a survey. Don't call the librarians in and start erecting a concordance. Just say no, because it's stupid. When your friend's like, hey, can peasants produce infinite clubs? You don't need to look that up. No index is required. No, they don't. We're done. Back to the actual game. I don't fucking get it.
Well, I mean, again, a lot of these are, thought exercises, essentially.
Okay.
Because, I mean, you can kind of break.
It's like the trolley problem, Schrodinger's cat, and infinite club peasants.
Infinite club peasants.
Yes. Truly a thought experiment.
Well, I think it's
what the philosophers of old had in mind.
Well, I mean, there are interesting. I mean. If you think about it, like these Murphy rules can be broken into categories. One, the player breaks the game and is too powerful. 2, the game breaks at a certain point in the campaign. Or 3, something happens that is totally unintended. And so in these kind of categories, like sometimes you won't recognize it until it's too late. In which case you either have to retcon or sort of redesign it, or as the campaign goes on, you kind of have to gradually. I mean, there are so many. Some of these Murphy rules have become so common they become sort of tropes for the setting. I mean, the whole idea of a murder hobo is basically a Murphy's rule. So the idea is just rejecting all of them immediately is, I think, kind of. I mean, I think sort of the fun is the fact that the murder hobo has become a concept in RPGs. It's a different type of character than has existed in fantasy literature or anything like that. So,
so you're saying murder hoboism is a good thing?
I think it's an interesting thing.
Okay.
And games should be about interesting things. So, I mean, what the skeleton computers, especially like that, or I could even defend the peasant club thing, because then you have imagine, some sort of fantasy game where you enter an alternate universe where everything is made of clubs it's like a Minecraft world, and your characters have to adapt to something where anyone can produce anything of a given type, or where the characters
by punching trees.
Yeah. But then there are interesting stories through it. Like, you bring in something that's not made of club, and everyone is like, what the fuck is that? And everyone's chasing you with their club war machines and their club golems and their club boats. So I don't know. Would you? I mean, again, you seem to be pretty much like, no, just run the game as you.
I mean, we can do it as dumb joke ideas, but like, I really don't think you're gonna do your version of like the IT crowd necromancer. Nor do I think you're gonna make all your peasants plants.
I think the skeleton computer could actually be a great.
I think you could have one. I think you could have one monster without object permanence as a joke.
Yeah.
But like, if every creature like in your whole world doesn't have object permanence, like including humans, I think you're gonna have a hard time explaining why everyone isn't dead. Like, so, I mean, you can hate. Like, I really think you're either hate playing or demaking RPGs when we talk about this, and I'm fine with that. But like, RPGs take a lot more work than like playing a video game glitched out of its fucking mind and like monster factoring through it. Like, I mean, if you want to dedicate that much and commit to the bit that hard, fucking go for it, man. Like, vaya con Dios, but whew.
Well, I mean, again, like the skeleton computer, I think would be great for like even in the dungeon world, like your what is it, Colossus Archipelago. I think that would be an interesting adventure or setting, would be, entering in an ancient computer made of skeletons or golems or whatever, and trying to figure out what it's trying to compute. You could have,
it's good for one game.
Yeah. Well, or the setting that you had. But so when you deal with like a player who has found there are degrees of Murphy's effectiveness. Like the stun grenade thing is effective, but it can only be done in rooms, that where the relatively small rooms where the radius of the grenade can reach the ceiling or floor. So if they do it outdoors, if they do it, and once they throw in the first grenade, they blow up the walls, obviously. So you can't do it again, at least in the same room. So, what do you do when the player, it comes up with a more classic game design problem, which is like, what do you do when one player is more powerful than all the others? And then everyone either has to copy his tactics, or you have to, or you just have to balance the encounter for that one player. I don't know. So that,
Didn't you have that happen with RJ one time where?
Yeah, exactly. So, and that was one, and the reason that I actually found quite a few Murphy's rules for superhero games, and I kind of ignored them because superhero games, anything where you can design your own power can be broken pretty easily.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and that's part of the genre, though. But
as Dennis Duttweiler said, there is no such thing as a rule that prevents people from being assholes.
Yeah.
So there's no need to write it in your game system.
Yeah.
Because you can't. It can't be taught. It's an ingrained skill. So yeah.
Well, I mean, for me, when I think some of these Murphy's rules, I see the possibility of like, what is a world like where the rules of reality are not even like our own? So it's like, exploring sort of a very fantastic realm or a very bizarre world. And I think there are interesting implications for it. So,
like convincing people that you're the moon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or can they even see the moon because it's so far away? The penalties stack up, and that, I mean, that's common in a lot of game settings, like there are modifiers for perceiving something that's very distant. So if the moon's
you could have like the Wild Talent Skyrim game.
Yeah.
You could have your fantasy kingdom be just like that, only instead of Skyrim glitches, you can just have, RPG glitches. You could design a campaign around living in the dumbest of fantasy universes where, like, the moon, a lot of people are convinced that everybody else around them is the moon. And, peasants can produce infinite staves and, stuff like that. And it might be fun for a couple sessions to be that fucking weird about things. But, yeah.
I just thought this is... I think I see possibility. I mean, it has to require everyone to be on board, and sort of...
It's also for, like, hardcore RPGers.
Okay, yeah.
Because these are in jokes. Like, don't introduce your friends to D&D on everyone is made of sticks night.
Or a simple one like, okay, you're playing a monk and you took that thing to give you fire resist. Okay, well, I'm going to set you on fire. Like, what? Well, you'll do bonus damage because you're on fire, and it won't hurt you because you have fire resistance.
No, see, that would be cool. Again, fire resistance is not a great example. There's no reason if you are fire resistance not to constantly be on fire.
That's true.
If it was my first RPG and I looked down at my sheet and was like, wait, I can't be burned by fire? Yeah. I find oil and cover myself in it and light myself on fire. That's move one.
Yeah, that's move one. And sometimes the Murphy's rules, again, like are to the detriment of character and create interesting penalties. Aside from that, there's a lot of monsters that, if you actually look at their abilities, would, if they were around, why haven't they killed everybody? Like not just vampires, but like a lot of undead, not just in D&D, but in various settings. Like, if they kill someone, that person becomes that type of undead. So why hasn't these are shadows that can move through walls and they can suck someone's soul out and turn them into a shadow in a matter of rounds. Why aren't we all shadows at this point? So you could have a campaign where that happens as an emergent thing, where like you encounter shadows, you open up a tomb and there's shadows there for the first time, and then like, oh shit, there's the shadow apocalypse.
See, that'd be good. Yeah. That'd be interesting.
So, and that could be even unintended, because if, I know there have been D&D GMs or just GMs that are like, look at them like, oh shit, this should wipe out this village, and this village. And then they get kind of critical mass and like just simulating what a battle between, no one can kill these things. So there are sort of Murphys that can create interesting challenges. And certainly these things, even the things that benefit player characters, can be used against them, because like the paladin stacking, that actually doesn't mean they're invincible. It only means they're invincible while they're near each other. So then the campaign becomes a matter of encounters balanced, like how do the paladins stick together? Like if they're on a boat at sea and, there are waves knocking them about, or if they're,
So to be clear,
it's like a puzzle.
Your advice for paladin stacking is not to say that's bullshit, don't do it.
Yeah.
It's to design an entire campaign around the GM intentionally splitting the party.
Yeah. Well,
full of constant walls shooting down in between people.
It becomes like a puzzle game, like Portal or something like that, don't you think? Like, we all have to push these levers at the same time in order at different, but we have to be split up in order to do this, or something like that.
I mean, I do admire, I guess, the certain cussedness of like total party wiping your players with shadow people, and just be like, oh, we're gonna make new characters, don't do their shadows, and be like, no, it's canon, and then all the new characters are like rolled in the impending shadow apocalypse.
Yeah, there's only the paladins can stand against the shadow. So it's like,
but like, I don't know who has that fucking discipline to be like, it's all canon. Everything happens. Everything happens exactly the way. There's no retcanning. Yeah. There's no out of table talk. Your characters say everything they say. Like, I don't have that resolve, I guess you could call it.
It's a different way of looking at it, because then the encounter becomes balancing against that kind of Murphy's Rule character becomes, instead of like the standard, like, is this a fair fight? Is this something that will disable their broken ass power or not?
But doesn't that sort of like require like isn't the main strategy for the in-game characters to have meta knowledge of the math behind the character? So how do you express that in character?
Yeah, that's a good point.
This peasant can produce infinite staffs. Like, show me the scene in which people realize that. Like, you know, how do you figure out that the shadows endlessly murder forever in character without, like, looking at the math of it? Or how do the paladins know they're invincible once the fourth guy shows up?
Those questions are the campaign there. Like, isn't it? Like, we have the scholar. He's going to try.
So are the 4 paladins that, because again, this didn't happen. This happened meta. But I want it to happen in character. Are the 4 paladins that realize that they're literally invincible when they all stand together in like a square formation the first fucking people to realize that? Because like that would be a little bit interesting if the new game was just walking around like, no, everyone, you gotta believe me. Become a paladin and get 3 friends. That's it. We can rule the earth. You
just described a great campaign.
Yeah, but like that's very different. And you're not approaching it from the direction of story. You're approaching it from the direction of like, I'm a min-maxing son of a bitch, and I'm gonna get my other 3 friends to help me do my min-maxing son of a bitch plan, and like those people aren't going to come up with a good story like that because they're just min-maxing sons of bitches. They're munchkin ass power gaming assholes, and they don't give a fuck about the story in the first place, or they wouldn't be studying the game like a Talmudic scholar. Okay, like the two. I understand you can have an interesting narrative thing as a result of it, but discovering the thing is at a cross purpose to telling a good story about anything. That's my thesis.
Okay, that's
for
your
the
thesis.
episode. Yeah.
I think you're fun shaming. So
I'm not fun shaming. You guys do whatever you want.
So because again, discovering the meta. Now. It's interesting because a lot of role-playing games have like approached this topic. You know, in fact, I know you'll love this. In the World of Darkness, there was a vampire scientist who actually.
Let me get my bucket of dice.
I forgot his name. It was a German name actually, but he actually named all the vampire disciplines, all their superpowers, and actually came up with terms and studied like generation and blood points and all this other.
I actually have a World of Darkness story for the anecdotes.
Oh,
that the fans will be thrilled to hear.
I didn't even mention there was a World of Darkness when I found out one in the new World of Darkness.
Again, one?
Yeah, just one.
Not the entirety of the game.
Not the entirety. No, because Murphy's rules are broken. Like,
why did you say that in the tone as if you were contradicting me? Again, the entire game line.
But it was basically about a bow of doom, where because of the crafting and rules, you could make a bow and make a vampire so swole he could like shoot through 4 bank vault doors with 1 arrow.
Because that's how arrows work.
Yeah, you could like when a character has 7 hit points, he could do 60 damage, so he could do more than like a tactical war. So I'm not going to go into the math or like what feats he would need and all this.
And
other
some
shit.
World of Darkness players thought it was nerfed because they're World of Darkness players.
This is new World of Darkness.
A outside recycling bin full of dice to roll. Is that what a World of Darkness game is? You just like bring in the recycling tub from outside, you load it with dice, and then every time something happens, you kick it over. Is that it?
Only for an elder game.
You've got to get a running start and just like drop kick that son of a bitch.
That's exalted,
to get
sir. That is exalted.
Okay.
Most of the dice pools actually it depends on the power level of the character. Newbie characters, low level vampires don't roll many dice. But we were doing elder vampire games for What the Heck, so they all had buckets of dice. So it's slight difference. Yeah, that's how you know you're more powerful characters. How many dice you roll. So I think again, the Murphy's rules are an interesting thought exercise, and there are interesting campaign concepts that you can come up with through the discovery of metagame knowledge in the game setting. Or the implications of a broken rule, or of course how the rules as written do not carry across the theme. So rather than automatically house ruling, examine the implications and decide whether or not you want to allow them in your game, or if they come up, in the middle of a normal game, if we had discovered collision vehicle rules, drone collision damage rules in No Evil and started, one-shotting Exurgents with them, I think, you would.
I would have said no and moved on. Like a sane, rational person.
Except for that first time, because, I don't know. You wouldn't even give us the first time that it happened?
No, because it's dumb.
All right.
You wouldn't want me to give it to you the first time.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, it's Menjapa. He's dead now. Done.
Hey, we tried to save Menjapa's life, remember?
No, if it was like a big bad boss or this is my contention.
Okay.
The underground subway fight where you were outnumbered and you didn't have your heavy hitters there and all kind of stuff. Had there'd been the big reveal and all these monsters, and you're just like, flying saucer, they're all dead. All right, we're done.
Yeah.
Now, let's go home. That would have been more fun than what happened as a result of it, the desperate action and the heroic sacrifice of if I'd just been like, no, yeah, everyone's dead now. You win. See you guys next week.
Right.
Get out. That's not the premise. It's not the premise of the whole fucking exercise. God.
All right. That's fair. That is fair. So, yeah. But I don't know. I think it's just something fun to think about. So when we come back, we'll have I'll probably have some synthwave or something,
Weird.
You like synthwave.
I do like synthwave, but every time you say you're going to do synthwave, you put up vaporwave.
Not always.
And troll face me, so I don't expect it anymore.
All right. Well, first up, we have shout-outs. I have a book that I'm almost through with. I'm reading quite a bit of it. The Alcoholic Republic. It's a book about the history of alcohol consumption in the early 18th century, early 19th century, late 18th century in America. Basically, the consumption of alcohol from 1790 to 1830 just spiked to 5 gallons per person per year. And that was over.
We got a lot better at making it.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. And so it goes into why whiskey was so popular, what the effects of it were, and the economics of it. And it was
also, life was terrible.
Yeah, that's part of the reason.
Life was fucking awful all the time.
Yeah. Well, no, they go into this, there was a lot of if you were a person who could save up to get a farm, things were a lot better than if you were, a canal digger or someone like that. So, or a boatman or a wagon driver. And so they talk about or a trapper, you spend all year trapping out in the wilderness and then you go to a rendezvous with all the other trappers and the company to sell your furs. And they're like, hey, we have some whiskey for you. Why don't you celebrate? And then you sell your entire year's worth of work for 3 days of, a hangover, essentially.
Yep. They used to use it in the slaughterhouses in Chicago instead of heating the factories.
Yeah.
They just gave everyone vodka.
And also attitudes towards alcohol back then were like, yeah, it's healthy for you. And in a lot of ways it was, because water was terrible back then.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't know how to make it potable. They didn't. Yeah. Boiling, what the fuck? Why would you do that?
At least alcohol killed parasites.
Yeah, exactly. And tea was un-American because it was expensive and
until you got to Prohibition, the government starts intentionally blinding people. And
yeah.
That kind of shit.
Well, it doesn't go into that. It's just, the history ends in the 19th century, so it's up until the beginning of the temperance movement, not the not all the way into Prohibition. But anyway, it's a fascinating history. A lot of parallels between today and talking about people didn't trust doctors back then and shit like that. And it's just people.
What? You made this craft brew on your stove?
Yeah,
I'll have a drink. The Mix 6, while I love, people have asked if they can send me in their home brews. And we've had to do a sad but hard no on that. Because I've seen some people homebrew, and I'm not saying you're like them, but I don't want to die.
Also, the legality of shipping alcohol.
Super illegal, and I think more so illegal if you're just shipping me some shit you've rebottled in year-old Busch Light bottles or something. So I'm interested to try your diet chili agave pilsner or whatever the fuck it is, but maybe not.
Well, I mean, the whole point of the mixtape is to review the beer so like people can get them on their own if they like them, or to be aware of which ones not to get.
Yeah, we can't tell you. Go to Steve's house.
He's cool.
Well, wait for his wife not to be there. She does not like him brewing in the house.
What was one of yours?
So one of mine was just today. Noah on the group me, thankfully, sent me an article by David Edelstein, who is the, let's just say, psychotic reporter that's been over a decade infiltrating Japanese Yakuza families for Tokyo Vice, which is a very good book. And he's did a series of NPR interviews about it that are also well worth listening. But I don't know if it's sponsored post or what, but he basically took the video game Yakuza 3 and a PlayStation and went to 3 retired Yakuza members, the ones that aren't trying to kill him, because there are multiple ones trying to kill him. He went to 3 required Yakuza guys, are semi-retired, as much as one can retire. He brought in a teen to teach them how to use the PlayStation, and that's the real story. That's what I wish the article would go into, because like he just pulled some random Japanese teen off the street into a Yakuza office and had him teach boss Shinoku or something how to fucking play PlayStation. How terrifying would that fucking be?
Or how awesome, depending on what kind of teenager you were.
Yeah, like you get a coupon to a host club.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but the whole game is basically these 3 old Yakuza guys talking about the efficacy of their portrayal in the video game Yakuza 3, and it is some of the most hilarious nonfiction writing I've ever fucking read. Like, the first detail was like, 2 of them had trouble with the controller because they didn't have pinkies. And the idea is just like, Aru, you have shamed us. You shall Z-dash no more in Super Smash Brothers. Chop. Was fucking hilarious. And then they were talking about, apparently the main character owns an orphanage in Yakuza 3 and is doing Yakuza stuff as revenge for people hurting his orphanage. And he's like, I don't know what and one of them's like, I don't know any Yakuza guys that own an orphanage. And one of them was like, well, I knew one. He's a good guy. And he's like, wasn't that a tax shelter, though? And the response is, of course it was a tax shelter, but he ran it legit. Which is, and then they argued about, could crystal meth be a power-up in the game? And it was, I was just in tears reading it. It was one of the best short articles I've read online in a long time.
No, I've read the same review. It's amazing. I'll link to it. It doesn't take very long to get through.
It's very short, but it's hilarious all the way through.
It's one of the best reviews of anything in the history.
I want to play Yakuza 3 more than I ever have before, which was 0.
Yeah. I've actually played one of the Yakuza games for the one they had for the PS2, and it was actually really fun. But then someone deleted my save, Chris, and so I didn't want to go through another 8 hours.
When they called him a gaijin, it's like, shh, that's rude to call him a guy. We don't use those terms anymore. And they're like SJW Yakuzing each other. Oh god.
No, they say you can't use gaijin. That's rude. Yeah, he's a gaikujin. It's like, yeah, he's a fucking gaikujin. Yeah, that's right.
It was so good.
Yeah. Oh god, it was amazing. Let's see here. Speaking of Japan, I want to give a shout out to Blame. There's now a legitimate English translation published of it coming out, the manga.
Oh, really? Not a fan?
No.
Thing?
And I've got the first 2 volumes of it. Very high quality printing.
You do?
Yeah.
You have to let me borrow this.
Yeah, sure.
I liked that manga.
Yeah, it is amazing. Blame is very, very...
I hope you like tall buildings.
Well, bottomless voids, infinite structures stretching into the distant into the horizon, and eclipse phase, post-human, transhuman, sci-fi, which they explain very little. But
Life's hard to Dyson sphere, yo.
Yeah. There's actually, fan theories of like what they're in. Is it a city? Is it a Dyson sphere? Or is it just there's one theory that it's a tower going from like Earth to Saturn or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just, they have these robots in it that just build on for infinity. The manga follows the story of one character, Kiri, or Kili, depending on what.
Definitely Killy.
Yeah. Who is
best character name ever.
who is looking.
What's he do? He kills a lot of stuff? Killy. I'm going on break.
Well, in the new translation, it's Kiri.
Lame.
Yeah, lame. So he is looking for a human, an unmutated human with the net terminal gene, which apparently allows them to access some sort of network. That's about it for plot. Weird shit happens. People try to kill him. He kills them back.
He has a Glock that contains a neutron star.
It's a zero gravitron emitter.
It looks like a Glock.
It does. It's a very small gun. It's very noisy cricket, kind of like tremendous recoil, blows shit up real good. And there's very few reoccurring characters other than Kili. But yeah, it's quite fun. So check it out.
So speaking of kind of transhumanist things, I've started playing Titanfall 2 to get my multiplayer fix. And if you're a fan of Eclipse in the second game, which actually has a story, it's not doing the Shadowrun
multiplayer only.
Multiplayer only thing like the first one did, which failed like it always does. If you're not Blizzard, it is transhumanist as fuck. Like, you're fighting inside, like, again, lots of void, endless towers, artificial structures forever on Dyson spheres. And you're basically just a Jovian. Like, you have jump boots, you're a Jovian, and you're trying to get to your hard suit. And if you just play it like EP as fuck, like, it's like a pretty good, transhumanist shooter. And then you just blow lots of stuff. You got a robot buddy to follow you around. It's fun.
All right. I have looked at it. It does look fun. I've just been... I bought so many games in the Steam sale that I need to catch up on backlog. I did clear one game from my backlog, though. I got it in the latest Steam sale. Firewatch, which is a story video game, kind of a walking simulator a little bit. Very beautiful graphics, where you play Henry, a guy who took a job as a Firewatch in a tower, and his only human contact is this woman, Delilah, who you talk over to the radio. And there's a lot of sort of a complex conversation mechanic where you can choose from different responses and goes back and forth. And there's like contextual clues like, oh, hey, I found this standing rock formation. It's like, oh, yeah, that's this and blah, 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 blah. There's a story. I don't want to spoil it, but a lot of it is just looking around. It's a very short game, too, if you kind of focus on it, where you can beat in like 3-4 hours, or maybe 6 if you wander around a lot. And I liked it. I mean, it really much focuses on Henry and Delilah's character, and who they are and their personal problems. So it's very realistic in terms of like how it handles, character and dialogue and that kind of thing. So it's almost like you're playing in like, a workshop short story, or so literary fiction.
What would that guy from my MFA story be like as a game?
Yeah. Well, it's better than that.
Yeah.
It's literary fiction as a game, I guess I should say. Because there are genre elements in that there is a plot, but like it's not going to distract from it. You're not fighting zombies or bears or anything. So don't get the game if you are into if that's what you're expecting. So
speaking of story games, I am playing This Is the Police. Which is another Steam game. It is a police commissioner simulator, which is a little odd, but you basically start the game being fired on corruption charges, and you have 180 days to finish out your term, and you can make choices on either making as much money for your incoming retirement as you want, or like trying to be like a legitimate person, and like you're sort of deciding in the game how corrupt you are. My only complaints about it is the story cutscenes. They make it pretty fucking clear that you're real goddamn corrupt. Like it doesn't make the story doesn't quite vibe if you're like not doing some shady shit with the mob. But it's pretty interesting in terms of like managing your resources, because you've got to do these sort of things like these sort of awful things for, and that's the interesting part about the game is that it's awful. Like, it's unrepentantly racist and sexist and terrible, but not to the point is like, you do this. It's just like, all right, if I want another detective so I can solve this fucking serial killer case, I have to go beat up the gay protesters outside City Hall for this politician so he will grant it. And then at the same time, I have to sell these things for the mob, so the mob will stay close enough for me, so they don't find the undercover guy I sent to them. So I got to make sure the stuff I sell isn't like weapons that go on the street, but only like drugs and literally. And so you're like really managing your level of corruption just to get through the goddamn day. But in doing so, doing all these horrendous things and sort of managing that kind of stuff. And then the only part of the game that bothers me is that you send people out on dispatches to go do stuff. And once they go to the crime scene. They might need backup, they might not. And then depending on the quality of the officers you sent in terms of their professionalism rating and whether you sent backup or not, they will either catch the person, no officers injured, no civilians injured, catch the person, no officers injured, civilian injuries, don't catch the person, officers dead, or civilians dead, depending on that kind of stuff. But most of the time, if you plan pretty well, you can catch pretty much everyone without incident. But then they have to go all the way back to the precinct before you can send them out again. And so it'll be like this crime props up literally next door to where their fucking police car's at. And it's like, no, we gotta drive across town first. And so you have like somebody getting stabbed to death by a gang of cannibals or something. You're just like, we're going as fast as we can, ma'am. And then like they drive all the way back across town from the like false alarm where like no one got arrested.
So there's no suspect.
Yeah, they've got to drive all the way back across town before you can send them out. And that gets annoying, but it's like part of the basic resource management of the game. Yeah. Don't send out too many people
Always
for
have
one
reserve.
crime. Try and have reserves. Try and build up your roster of professionals. But a Murphy's Rule thing is like cops.
Yeah.
If you send them all out once, if no one's in the precinct, you have from the time until they get back.
That's what the Payday gang waits for.
Crime. Yeah. Yeah, that's what happens in Payday. All the cops are gone.
Yeah. So all the other criminals benefit from it.
All the other criminals do.
That makes sense. They should add Payday DLC to it, Send everyone, they all die.
Send everyone, they all die. The game is over.
Or you can just let the Payday gang do whatever they want.
Everyone in the city's done.
Yeah.
Everyone has died.
Yeah, there's no crime except for the Payday gang. That's the price they pay. So, let's see here. Speaking of horror, scary things. I watched a good horror movie recently, The Autopsy of Jane Doe. With starring Brian Cox.
Oh, that's out?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
I really want to see that.
On various video streaming services, I think.
And that to movie night.
Yeah. Well, it's real gory because they do an autopsy.
Well, I watched Bone Tomahawk yesterday, so I think I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can get through Bone Tomahawk, you never get.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Weirdly paced, oddly slow western, and then.
Super
Cannibal Holocaust. It's just
I reviewed it on the podcast. Yeah,
it shifts gears fast. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So it's Brian Cox and I think
best character on Earth.
Yeah, he best actor on Earth. Yeah,
I love some Brian Cox.
Where he's a more coroner who like they find a Jane Doe in the basement of this house. She's like in the basement, partially dug up, and there's like 3 other people, and they look like they've all killed each other. And Brian Cox and his son, the actor who plays his son, who's like a medical technician, are the ones who have to autopsy him. And the police are saying, we have to do it tonight because, people, I can explain the other 3 bodies, but who the hell is she? And they start examining her. And as they do, weird stuff starts happening.
Delta Green as fuck.
It is very Delta Green. Because the way, I don't want to spoil too much about it, but like, obviously the MacGuffin in this movie is Jane Doe, and so
she ain't normal.
She ain't normal. So if Delta Green, obviously no Delta Green agents were involved in the movie, but when Delta Green hears about the events of the movie, like what do they do? I actually wrote something on the Delta Green email list, like what happens, when news of this hits the media. They probably Delta Green both versions of it try to get the corpse at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's like a race to get the body. And then once you have the body, what do you do? and that kind of thing. So
Also sounds like a good, like, whoever survives get to be your character for the campaign kind of one shot.
Oh yeah, definitely. But there's great acting because he's doing this clinical examination. There's all these oddities, and it's piecing together the mystery, and then the spooky things start happening. They're more and more spooky, and so yeah, it's a great short little. It's a one location movie. It's just in this basement morgue. It's not like attached to a hospital. It's like a morgue / crematorium. It's like a family business that they've owned for generations. And so yeah, it's a neat little movie, but there's a lot of gore in it because they cut open a dead body. And let's see here. I also do want to mention Curse of Crimson Throne is a new Pathfinder adventure path that's come out. I got a review copy of it. I'm working my way through it. It's very promising so far. Very beautiful book, great art. And I'll try and have a full review of that in the next thing, but I want to give that a shout out if you're looking for great Pathfinder adventures. You wanted to mention...
I've been reading a series of books called the Bug Out series by Creek Stewart. He had a survival show on Discovery at some point with some other survival guy. He was the crazy hippie that didn't wear shoes, which never quite made sense to me.
Yeah.
But my father got me the series along with my go bag for Christmas because it appears to be the left's turn to turn into crazy survivalists.
Yeah.
Which I'm okay with, but I have a skill deficit to make up with, so I'm reading it. But it's very good. It's very practical knowledge. It's got very good pictures. It's very short, and it's easily worded. It's...
Is it a YA series or
no? It's a book of survivalist manuals.
Oh, well, okay.
And no, they're not fictional books.
Okay.
They're how to not die. And I'm currently reading the Bug Out Survival Guide for what you do when you leave your home. There's also the Bug Out Survival Kit, which is about what you should have in your bag, which is what my bag was packed with. And then there's the Bug Out Vehicle, which I will never afford. But I have that.
Is it like a Range Rover?
Yeah, like how do you do that? So I find it interesting for the inevitable dystopian collapse of our society, and also it's pretty good for verisimilitude with those survival skills you're always using in games that really amount to do you lose 2 hit points on this leg of the journey or not? You could be you don't lose 2 hit points because your character knows to take 2 logs and put the ticks in a herringbone formation across the ground so conduction doesn't steal your heat into the earth. So you get your 2 hit points back. But you can at least explain and attach an image to it, which is my hope. I hope is the only way I ever use this book.
Yeah.
But it is very much for a layman, not a woods person.
Yeah.
And it is very quick and direct and concise, as if you are reading it by a firelight of what to do. So, yeah, the only criticism I have of it is that it will not tell you how to tie knots because it thinks videos are the way you should learn to tie knots. And my question is, I'm not going to have YouTube, bro.
You can download YouTube videos.
We're going to be in the woods. So I guess he's saying that's something I need to practice right now, which I suppose I should learn to tie knots and shit. So if you're preparing to live in the Twilight 2000 future, might be approaching. I recommend it. Right. Seems pretty good.
I actually do. That did remind me. One shout out: the Complete YouTube Saver, which is a plugin for Firefox and Chrome, which allows you to download offline versions of YouTube videos, and you can download them as MP4s, or you can just rip audio from it, which is what I use for ripping Patreon games and posting them for people to download and things like that. So I support this plugin's development on Patreon, and
that is super useful, yeah.
Yeah, it is super useful. So if you need to, and it's real easy to use and set up. So if you,
I often have the need to do that for classroom stuff.
Okay, well you should get it then.
The YouTube craps out on.
Yeah,
so that'd be good.
So exactly. So you can have your own copy of it, of any video you'll be watching more than once, like tying knots or classroom stuff. So complete YouTube saver. So you had a TV series you've been watching, right?
Yes, I've been watching The Night Manager. I'm only a couple episodes in on Amazon. The most unbelievable part of the series is how attractive Tom Hiddleston is. But besides that, it's a very interesting sort of international thriller about this night manager of a hotel who continues to be stumbling into these this advanced plot to use humanitarian aid as a form of arms smuggling. And Hugh Laurie's the bad guy, and it's very interesting. The reason I'm liking it so far is because it has like some remarkably good spycraft, like and tradecraft stuff, but I can't tell if it's more realistic or less realistic because this night manager is pretty fucking good at being a spy for being a hotelier. Like, I mean, he's a good hotelier, but he's real fucking good at doing some spy shit. But at the same time, like, he'll then do something so mind-numbingly fucking stupid. You're just like, oh, he's playing at this. That's why he's bad. Or I'm just like, oh, come on. Because the story wouldn't happen if that idiot, dumb thing didn't happen. So at this point, I'm kind of hate watching it. Because, like, it's enjoyable spy kind of stuff. And he'll do, like, he needed to get the SIM cards from a bunch of guys because they kept moving their phones. And he had a package of new phones. And he looked in the package. So he went up and he convinced a waiter to bring the package up and then said to remove all their trash immediately because they're very finicky about it, lying. And then he went through the trash and found their old SIM cards. Like, that's some, like, next-level tradecraft shit. But then he'll, like, be trying to hide somebody, and he's like, all right, you need to go to this place. And it's, like, this off-site rented apartment owned by one of his cook employees. And she's like, come with me. He's like, sure. So then the night manager leaves in the middle of the night with this strange guest and gets in a car with his phone to this strange place that, like, otherwise would be entirely off the grid. And I'm just like, what the fuck, Tom Hiddleston? Like, don't go with her. She disappears. It's a woman in a burqa who leaves in a hotel at night. How the fuck do you trace that if the owner of the hotel doesn't go with her? So that's basically my relationship with the night manager is like alternately going, oh, clever, and then screaming at it. That's from tradecraft perspective. So,
all right, interesting. I don't know if I want to watch it or not.
I don't know either. I'm only like 2 episodes in. So, but if you're into like spy gaming stuff, and we've certainly covered that, there's some good stuff to look for in it, and then there's other things to be like, oh, that's why that guy died. Because he did this thing that's really painfully dumb.
All right. Well, I'll keep that in mind. Let's see here. You mentioned you had an anecdote that was related to World of Darkness.
Okay. So I also said I would say this on air to hold myself accountable.
Yeah.
So I visited Andrew Baswell in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Friends of the podcast, friends of Sarah and I. And we went. And Andrew Baswell told me, after showing me all of his World of Darkness books in his house, for reasons that I can't understand, told me about his first World of Darkness game, which, I mean, we really need him on the podcast to do it justice, but apparently involved a basement, which was covered with a wrought iron gate, like, in the interior of the house. So you went down the stairs, you opened a creaky wrought iron gate into the basement where the guy who was running the game lived, who was playing in the game that Andrew ran lived, and which had a smoke machine on, and the Blade soundtrack playing. So he sort of gave me this magical vision of the 90s of what World of Darkness was supposed to be.
You don't understand what it was like, man.
Yeah, that's literally how his story started. Like, you don't get it, man. You weren't there. So he talked about that. And it did not sound fun, but it was at least hilarious. And I'm like, wow, weird that I didn't get it on that trend there, Daywalker. So later, we'd had a few. And it came up, then conversation about music, of which Baz and I have some disagreements.
Yeah.
That he did not like Radiohead, but had also never listened to Radiohead. Something I would ascribe as just goddamn blasphemous. And I think this is where I probably got played. Because bad tradecraft, don't get drunk and make bets. So Andrew said he would listen to the entire discography of Radiohead and write me a report on it. to make up for his lack of definition, if I would agree to then play in a World of Darkness game he ran. And I drunkenly did agree. So it's on the podcast now. It's official. If Andrew Baswell writes us all a report about the complete discography of Radiohead, I will, on air, play in one entire 4-hour, and I will time it, one entire 4-hour World of Darkness.
Is he going to run it?
He is going to run it.
Did he say whether it's old or new World of Darkness?
I don't remember, Ross. It was a drunken bet.
Let's hope old world.
I don't know. But I'm not doing shit until I see that report. But the bet has been made. I can't welch on it now. It's on the podcast. But once we all see that report, we will know. I will grade it. I will check for plagiarism. It needs to be original thoughts on like Pablo Honey and the Bends. It's got to go way back.
Yeah.
But I will, for the purposes of musical education, run one game. Play one game of World of Darkness.
Oh, God. Have you chosen your clan yet?
There's no report, Ross. I ain't doing shit.
Come on, top 3. What clans?
I don't fucking know what a clan is or what the names are.
Okay, that's a Bruja thing. That's a Bruja, yeah.
Not knowing what things are?
Yeah,
There's a clan all about not knowing the names of things?
Yeah, Bruja.
Do they have object permanence?
You get some Alcavian. You obfuscate.
God.
Or, no, that's...
I ain't doing shit. Hey, this bet ain't... No. I will walk out.
That's more of a
I said the bet so that I would be held accountable. I ain't doing shit for free.
You're being... Oh, that's very Ventura. That's very Ventura.
All right, I'm done. Podcast is over. I'm taking off my headphones.
I was going to tell you about my last night games of Armitage Files, but you really did put the... slide the microphone away, and you got that face. You're like, all right. So in last night's Armitage Files game, we were trying to impersonate some cultists to get in to sabotage the ritual, and Bill, being the good name that GM that he is, didn't have names on hand, so we had to make them up. And we figured out that there were 2 cultists in particular we could impersonate, that we could kidnap and then impersonate. And their first names were Vance and Darcy. And as soon as we found out, I was like, oh, I'm going to be Darcy. And just immediately. And Aaron says, God, you jumped on that. You jumped on Darcy immediately. It's like, yeah, who wouldn't? And so we kidnapped them and put on their golden robes and, hopefully, well, I'm not sure exactly what happened.
Did the daughter of another cultist find you dark and alluring despite your improper cult?
Yeah.
Oh.
Bill had some actually very good puzzles for the ritual that we had to figure out in order to interrupt it, so we thought. But then the universe ended, or I'm not sure exactly what happened. Where things happened. It was weird, and the universe was consumed us, maybe?
So Armitage is over?
No, it's not. We woke up in another universe.
Oh, well, okay. You just start over.
Yeah, no, it's apparently Bill's wanting to add in Cthulhu City, which is an upcoming supplement for
he's learned from you.
Yeah. Which is basically Dark Cities, the Cthulhu setting. So
why play one RPG when you could do a suicide of everything on the fountain?
It's part of Trail of Cthulhu. It's an official game supplement from Trail of Cthulhu.
You're like that weird kid that you go to the pizza party, birthday party, and like you all dare each other to do suicides, and then you do it, and then that kid's just like, I really like it, and then you just catch him drinking it every time he can, like for years, just constantly running the board on fountain drinks, and you're just like, man, ginger ale and Diet Dr. Pepper and Fanta doesn't go together, bro. And you're just like, nope. Put them all in there.
You just have to have a more open mind. Anyways, this has been RPPR, episode 138, Murphy's Campaign Concept. Zero's Bait.
Bye.
Bye.